All right, and we're live. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking this out. I got my friend Tyler Epstein here, and I'm bringing him on because I was actually browsing through Facebook, totally distracted, not paying attention, whatever. And I saw a post, and it was someone basically getting blasted for teaching people about wholesaling and just saying, hey, you put a property under contract, you lock it up, you put a long 30-day inspection period on it, and if you can't move it, then you just cancel it, which is something I've heard for a very, very long time. And I didn't know that you couldn't do that until I saw Tyler, I saw Cece, and I saw another person in Texas going on explaining that there's this term, fraud in the inducement. Never heard of that before. So before we go into that, Tyler, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey guys, Tyler Epstein. I am an attorney. I'm not your attorney, so this is not legal advice. This is a little bit of legal education. I'm an attorney in Texas. You know, this I wholesale a few houses. I have rental properties, buying some timber property, building an RV park. As we speak. So I'm in the game. I'm running around, kind of bouncing off the walls. No, Steve. Um, but I don't specialize in any one thing. I just do whatever makes sense when I have the time.
Right. And so I guess why, well, first we'll explain what fraud inducement is, and then I'll ask why it's a hot button. So
Okay.
first, what is fraud in the inducement?
Fraud in the inducement, it's really just common law fraud. Fraud in the inducement is how the fraud was committed. And so it gets a special term because the fraud was propagated by the inducing the contract. So I'm gonna start with just a little bit of basic contract law: offer and acceptance with consideration, right? And so that becomes kind of the meeting of the minds, if you will. If you offer to buy somebody's house, I'm gonna use wholesaling as a deal, and you say you're gonna pay cash and you're gonna close in 14 days, but you don't have the cash or the ability to close in 14 days, then you induce somebody to rely on that statement in signing the contract. Fraud and the inducement. Now you have a contract where, and I'm gonna go through the legal elements because it's this is for Texas, but every state's going to be similar. A material representation. Hey, I have $110,000 cash in a duffel bag in my trunk. I can buy this house right now. That's a material representation. That was false. You better have $110,000 in your trunk. That was made with the knowledge of its falsity or reckless without any knowledge of the truth. So saying, "Oh, I've got private money," but the guy that you last did a deal with said never call me again, then you don't, you it's sketchy whether he's going to loan you any, or she's going to loan you any money anymore. That was made with the intent that the other party rely on that, and then they suffered injuries. And so if you say you can close in 14 days and they're $18,000 behind on their mortgage or taxes, and you don't close, that's just eating up interest and fees. There's injuries there.
Yeah. So before we take a step into why it's such a problem, I want to make sure everyone understands it. So basically, in layman's terms, is if I lie to you to get you to sign a contract.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't explain the elements, but yeah, essentially, if you lie and get a contract, then it's fraud.
Right. So let's take it out of real estate. Let's just use whatever you guys learn in law school, right? Like, what are some basic or case law or precedent? Like we learn about frivolous lawsuits from like the lady that spilled her coffee on her lap at McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
What are some common things?
I will stop you. We're going to take a little sidebar there. 100% not frivolous lawsuit.
Okay, let's just pretend that. Okay, let's use another example.
Yeah, no, but you got to go watch the documentary on Netflix because we had to watch everything. I think it was HBO maybe. McDonald's was heating their coffee up to like 190 degrees, so the old people that they gave free refills to wouldn't drink so much. So then, not only this lady, when she spilled her coffee, it wasn't like 120 degrees, and she got a little chapped. She had to have skin grafts in her crotch. It was in the hospital for 20 days. And she only wanted them to cover her medical bills. And McDonald's told them to buzz off. And so when they sued, they found out this all lets out. Like they were literally trying to rip off old people so they wouldn't drink so much coffee. Coffee's not that expensive. And that's so long. Sorry, sidebar. And again, I'm very conservative, but there's certain things that like I gotta hold on. That's the deal. So I'll look at it like this. If I, a watch salesman, you go to the street corner, you're in New York, how many people are selling watches out of, like it's shocking how many people are actually selling watches on the street in New York.
That's not what's shocking. What's shocking is how many people are buying it.
Fair statement, right? This is a Rolex, right? Well, it says Rolex, but does that make it a Rolex? No, the mechanism and the artistry that goes into a Rolex is what makes it a Rolex. So that right there, right? So when you bought something and thinking it was a Rolex, the guy selling it to you knows it's not a Rolex. That's not actual contract. That's a bad deal. So you can rescind that and go back. No, I won't. Here's your Rolex back. Rolex. I want my money back because there was never a meeting on the minds. You were buying a Rolex, and he was selling you a Timex. Two totally different things.
So, but what about the part, right? Because what everyone kind of defers to is like, but Tyler, I've got this 30-day inspection period. I've got this subject to partner approval, subject to financial approval, whatever. Like they've got all these.
So 30-day inspection, yeah. So you go through that. Your partner approval, that's weak. That's very weak. Now the inspection is valid, but you are going in as an expert, right? So like the only way that the inspection, you can't go, oh well, I didn't know that the eaves needed to be painted. I don't know if I can buy this house anymore. It better come back with like a major plumbing issue, a major foundation issue, or a major roof issue that you couldn't spot from the naked eye, kind of. But if you walk into a house and you lay a marble down and it rolls to the right, you're like, I'm pretty sure you knew there was a foundation issue in here.
Right.
So like there's a limits to what you can get by with. The financial approval, nah, you're not buying an FHA house. You ain't going to FHA and get a loan. No. That's no. Especially if it says cash on all these wholesaler contracts running around. The one pager that says cash and 30-day inspection and partner approval. You're really setting yourself up. So now, but it says and or assigns and or not only assigns. Right. So you are committing to purchase the contract. You then have to hustle to try to sell that contract. But if you can't, you have committed to purchase the property.
So if I go in there and say, "Hey, Tyler, I need 14 days of due diligence."
Yep.
That due diligence doesn't cover me sending to my email list and saying, "Hey, I couldn't find a buyer, so that was my due diligence." You're saying that doesn't cut the mustard or whatever the expression.
Not at all, and especially when you're holding yourself out to be an expert. Right. like the things that I've walked from a contract before because I knew there was foundation issues, and I said I've got to get a guy in here that does this to tell me, hey, what's it going to take? I dropped $200 to have them come out and do a foundation inspection and give me a full plat and tell me it's going to take me 67 piers to stabilize this house. I go, no, numbers don't work no more. Went back to the seller. I was like, hey, I've got to pull X number of dollars off this. They were like, no. I was like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
That's valid. But if you
do a real due diligence.
Yeah, I spent $200. Like, you can't tell me I wasn't doing my due diligence. I've hired a guy specially. Go tell me. Yeah. That's valid.
Okay. So then what are the consequences? So let's say I tell Tyler, hey, I'm going to buy your house cash. I can close in 14 days. And my only exit is a wholesale. What are the consequences?
So fraud is, first off, it's criminal and it's civil. So if the DA decides that, you know what, he wants to end the wholesaling nonsense that is happening in his district, he can take that case and there's criminal charges that, that can be filed. I'm not a criminal attorney, so don't get me all, but so there is criminal on there. That's an option. On the civil side, then you have damages that can easily run up to, tens of thousands of dollars. Rescission on top of the criminal, plus your name's mud, and they can put liens and judgments against your houses. And essentially, everybody's like, well, I bought it in the name of my trust, or I bought it in the name of my LLC, and I did all this and that. Steve, you run multiple businesses, and I bet your accounting is not perfect, right?
It's actually pretty good, but it took a long time to get here.
I'm going to say it took you, exactly. It is pretty good, but you've got people now, because if you go back to the first 2 or 3 years, you're like,
first 10 years. First 10 years was a crap show.
Yeah, and your credit card, you're like, I don't know which credit card this goes to. Just put it on it and let's go. Right. So it's not hard for me to pierce a corporate veil, even for sophisticated people. Much less.
Also, my understanding is a corporate veil is invalid in the case of crime.
Fraud. Correct. Criminal. Yeah. So my thing is even if it was legitimate, it's not hard for me to pierce it. Much less with, I've got all my asset protection. I paid, $7,000 bazillion for I'm not going to say the name of it in Utah. I've got all this asset protection. I'm good, right? From this corporation that set all my corporate entity strip. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, learning about this, the bigger issue really isn't, integrity is important. All these other things are important. But for those who are more flexible, so I was talking to somebody yesterday, and we kind of said, wholesaling. Yeah, Johnny wholesaler, the last rule bender.
Yeah,
if you're in this industry, you tend to live in the gray, right?
Absolutely.
But I will say the things that after learning this, for someone that's not careful, yeah, maybe you don't get in trouble today, maybe you don't get in trouble tomorrow, but in 5 years, when you're wildly successful, and an attorney smells this could cause you lots of problems later on.
I can say that there's some DAs and some major MSAs that are hunting. They're head hunting. They are looking for the right opportunity to really run somebody up the flagpole. I know for a fact that one of them's in Bexar County, which is San Antonio, Texas, for people that are not from, and it's spelled Bexar, so that but anyway, it's funny, right? Bear with an X. But yeah, so there's some headhunting going on. And for me, it's personal, because I make money in this. I don't hide that from anybody. If I buy a house, I'm gonna have my equity position. I'm not a charity. Never made any bones about that. But if you put somebody on a contract and you string them out for 30 days or 45 days or 60 days, they don't have the ability to withstand your nonsense. So you're trying to capitalize on somebody while you're actually just hurting them. And to me, it kind of pulls at my heartstrings a little bit. So, I grew up in some situations that, $100 bill to me was a unicorn. So it is personal when I go into these houses, and yes, I'm making money. I've got 2 little girls to feed. I'm going to do that. I don't ever hide that from anybody. But when you're stringing them on, you're stealing from, you're not Robin Hood anymore. You are the sheriff of Nottingham. You're stealing from the poor. And that's criminal to me. And that's something that I take personal. Like, you offended me, and I'm not even involved with it, and you're offending me. And I don't get offended really that easy. So
I know that. I know that for sure. Hey guys, please ask your questions, right? What your questions about, fraud and inducement, maybe if you guys have some scenarios you want to run by us, like, hey, is this fraud and this inducement? Is this not? Whatever. Please, guys, post it in here. We'll go through it, because I asked Tyler to come on here because I want him to help our community do better, and also clean up our community, right? If you guys are seeing this, you can educate them on this. Like, hey, you guys can't do that, right? Now, ignorance has never been defense, but now for sure it's not ignorance. Now it's willful.
And that's another thing too, is you can get by being ignorant for a minute or two, and you may get a pass because they're like, he's just dumb. They're just dumb. We'll help them out, but eventually you don't have that excuse anymore. And so, yeah, I mean, and we got to self-regulate. We've got to call people out. We've got to get rid of the shysters before we're regulated by the government more, because it's going to happen, and that's not going to help anybody. It's going to hurt me. It's going to hurt the sellers. It's going to hurt every piece of the pie. Regulation has never been beneficial for anybody but the biggest of the big. Zillow is going to make a lot of money from it.
Well, and it sucks because every time the government comes in and sets a regulation, it hurts the little guy. Like, there are instances like short sales, right? Like, because of Dodd-Frank, if you didn't get the short sale docs into the bank 21 days prior to foreclosure, you can no longer do it. And somehow that was supposed to protect the homeowner. And now we got more people going into foreclosure, right?
Industry-wide, any regulations only help the established. Do you think Exxon cares about a carbon tax? No. They've got money for days. They're like, okay, it's going to squeeze out the little guy, and we can buy their assets for less. We survived to the next term, the next president, the next policymaker. We survive. Where when you're just getting started, you don't have those luxuries.
Right. And the other thing too is the reason why, Tyler's so passionate, and the reason why I'm so passionate about this specific thing. I was always looking at this from an integrity perspective, but now I know there's a legal perspective as well. Is that how many of you guys have gone into an appointment where the person was going in foreclosure in 14 days, and a wholesaler contracts it at a price they can't sell it at, and the day before foreclosure they price drop the seller to a price lower, right, than you would have paid for it. And they're like, well, if you won't drop it, then I guess you're going to foreclosure. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. And they're screwing the seller, right? They're taking advantage of the seller where they don't have any more time.
Yep.
And then we're losing to them because they're being unethical, and now we know illegal, acting illegally.
Yep. It's criminal. It's one of those things that, like I said, it gets me fired up.
Yeah. All right. So Rob's question: what would you put in the contract then to protect yourself?
I don't put anything in the contract to protect myself. I don't put it under contract if I'm not willing to purchase it at that price.
Yeah. And so I guess to clarify, right, this is not to say that you can't wholesale. We're not saying don't wholesale.
Absolutely not.
Right. We're saying if you can't wholesale it, you better be in a position to close on it or whatever else. You just can't have wholesale be your only exit.
When you put your name on the bottom of that line, you are committed to buy that house. And now I'm not saying you can't wholesale it or wholesale it or whatever you want to do with it, but you've got to close on that property. Now, if you can assign it for more and you can make your money and run, good. But if you put your money on there and said you're going to pay $100,000 and you don't have the ability to get $100,000, you just committed fraud.
Right. Okay. So I guess to answer this then, right? So double closing would be a lot safer than assigning. I think assigning is still fine.
You don't need to double close. Fine. Double closing is just assigning with two closings at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, you really just assign the contract. It's not fraud to assign the contract. So right. we're getting there. It's when you commit to buy a property, then you've got to be able to close. That's it. I mean, so if you can't close, if you don't have a hard money lender that is telling you, hey, in this zip code, we will lend up to this much, then you're committing fraud. Like if you don't have the cash in the bank, you're committing fraud. So
Right.
there is the cash clause. Yeah, if you're not paying with cash, if you're relying on hard money and you're saying you're paying with cash, the contract's invalid to begin with because it's not cash. Cash is if you have green $100 bills in your hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've got a third-party financer.
Right. All right. Let's see what else is here. So how do you wholesale to protect yourself, especially if you don't have capital to close on a property?
You better find somebody that does have the capital to close on a property before you put it under contract. You build a relationship with a hard money lender in your area and make sure that, they lend in this zip code, these streets, right? Because, I mean, sometimes they're like, oh, we don't lend there. So find one that lends in your area, figure out what their criteria is, and make sure that you hit that, and then make sure that you're right. Study, be a professional. If they're only going to lend on 3 2s, they won't lend on a 2-1. Don't lock up a 2-1.
Right. And I think this is so, again, just to emphasize, right? Like our intent is to wholesale, right? That is our intent. That's our preferred exit strategy on every deal with contract. But this is why you guys might have heard me refer to myself as the reluctant flipper. I will flip houses that we can't wholesale, right? My flip margins are terrible because the houses we flip are the houses that we couldn't wholesale, right? Those are the ones we might have contracted too high.
So I wholesale a few here and there if it's not an area I particularly want. But I mean, I close on every. If I put my name on it, I'm closing. I've yet to put a house under. I've not closed on 2 houses. One because the seller started ghosting me and the margins were thin, so I was like, bye, Felicia. And the other one is because I didn't, it was not worth, haggling over it. Like things changed, foundation was bad, they weren't coming down. Okay, fine, I walk.
Yeah. All right. So this is an interesting question. What do you do when the buyer commits and doesn't come through? And this is, where, I guess in 2 scenarios, right? Where if you've wholesaled it and the buyer doesn't come through.
Yeah, you're still on the hook for that first contract, so you still close.
Yep. So then the second part is, let's say I'm a wholesaler and I contracted it, right? And I wholesale it to Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a contract with Tyler. And then Tyler says, hey, Steve, I don't have the money. Are you then committing fraud in the inducement?
Potentially, there's some issues there. It's one of those things that, I mean, you've got me. If I sign that I'm going to buy it and then I back out, there's you have me on the hook. But guess what? You're still the monkey in the middle, so you're still on the hook too. It's.
Well, I'll still close on it, but my point is, after I close on it, do I have a case for a civil?
Absolutely, you do. I mean, we're talking in broad strokes, right? Contracts law is fickle, but broad strokes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that can be something interesting to talk about on assignment contracts. Like, hey, if you don't, because we have it here, if you don't close, I'm keeping your earnest money and I'm suing you for damages.
Yep.
And it sounds like here I can also, well, I guess that's what it is suing for damages.
Suing for damages. So it's one of those things but you also have a duty to mitigate damages. So but yeah, you could still get more. And that's another thing. I'm gonna bring up something else on these assignment contracts where they don't have any consideration for the option money for the inspection period. That's not a contract. Without consideration, you don't have a contract. You have nothing. You have toilet paper.
So if the contract itself doesn't have consideration, whether it's option money or earnest money, you're saying, if there's no mention of it, then it's not a contract.
No. And if you didn't deliver it, if you put on there you're gonna give them $100, and you didn't give them $100 check or take a picture of them getting $100 for you, then there's an argument that it's not a valid contract.
Even if you deposit the earnest money at title?
If you deposit at title, you're good.
Okay. So Anonymous asks, what about the earnest money? So like, let's say they do a contract with the seller and say, you know what, I can't perform, keep the earnest money. Are they still committing fraud in the inducement?
Yes, because you didn't have the ability to close. Not closing because you don't have the ability is much different than not closing because you don't want to. But if you don't have the ability when you sign that contract, that's fraud. Now, when you do give them earnest money, just make sure you don't ever want to get that back, because that's not.
Wait, say that again.
If you're giving the seller earnest money directly to the seller, make sure you just never want that money back, because it's gone.
Yeah, it's like lending to a friend the idea just like don't expect it ever to come back.
No.
Okay, so this is right here. I guess the option period kind of goes back to our due diligence period. You guys call it different in Texas.
Yeah. So your option period, no, it does not cover you for any reason. It covers you for reasons listed in the contract. So, and again, as you as an expert, now we're wading off in some areas that there's going to be somebody yell and argue with me, and that's fine. But if you're going in as an expert in the industry, you need to be able to find major things. So when you back out of that contract and the seller told you the sewer is busted underneath the house because the foundation has problems, and you back out because of that, but you didn't go get a foundation guy and say, hey, it's going to cost $30,000 to fix this. You just backed out because you couldn't assign it, and so you're just going to use that as an excuse. You're still wading off into some waters you don't wade off into. Now it gets grayer, right? But it's still in a vacuum fraud.
Yeah, and I think this is great observation here. The comment is that what we're saying here is that, work with someone that knows what they're doing so that you don't put yourself in a bad spot.
100%. And honestly, it's tougher to find great partners in this industry than it is to find money, because our industry is fraught with snake oil salesmen. It's one of the reasons I would agree to come on here with you, Steve. There's a lot of people like, nah, I ain't going on anywhere near you in a public place, much less on the internet.
Yeah. Stay tuned. I got a settlement that we just dealt with. We just wrapped up, and when I talk about who was involved in that settlement, I think it'll open some eyes. A guru in our space that got me involved in a lawsuit that I had nothing to do with, but I had to be in it and I had to settle. It cost me $10,000 to settle, of which I had no culpability, but the law doesn't care about that. Right?
It was cheaper than paying your attorney.
It's cheaper to pay $10,000 to make this thing go away than to pay my attorney. But stay tuned. I think it'll be very eye opening when they find out the guru that was involved in this.
Aaron, so let's say I'm just starting out. I don't have the money to buy their house. You legally must tell them that you're wholesaling up front. Explain what that means. Or just make sure you line up, be a bird dog for somebody, make an agreement to JV it. I've got a guy right now that I'm selling a house. I'm JVing with him. He brought me the deal, and after expenses, I'm splitting the profit with him 50-50. Will everybody do that? No. My thing is I'd rather row the boat and have everybody like me at the end of the day, and at the same time, I'm making plenty of money. So I'm making I'm making essentially 50-50 with him. I didn't do anything besides close the deal, put the money up, and close it in 60 days.
But I think just elaborate here, right? If I say, hey, Tyler, you know what? The money you're asking for, I can't pay that, but I might have somebody that will. Can we sign this contract? I'll see if I can get them to buy it. If they will, great, we're going to perform. If they won't buy it, then we can't perform. But you're disclosing it. And
you're disclosing it, except for there's one thing that, and again, contract law is fun. We just hit the parole evidence rule. So a contract is within those four corners of that contract. whatever you say, that parole evidence is sketchy whether or not you can get it in or out.
Mm-hmm.
So you may need to put that in the
Put it in the
special,
contract.
put it in the contract. Like, hey, I'm going to go look for somebody that I can't pay this, but I may be able to find somebody. But I can't present this option to them without having this contract.
Right. And then our good friend, Mr. Moreno, the key here, the absolute key to all this, avoiding this challenge of fraud and inducement.
100%.
Ability to close.
That's it. You've got to have the ability to close.
All right. So just for, what is it? Making sure, for emphasis, again, canceling during the inspection period. Invalid.
I mean, it's not invalid if it's a valid reason. If you cancel the inspection period because the front door squeaks, then I mean, no, not really. That's just kind of like fraud twice. Fraud on fraud, fraud squared. If it's a legitimate reason, right, that you could not discern without another expert. So again, you're in. I love this example because it's the easiest to do. If you're walking a house and you don't have a marble in your pocket to put on the floor or on the counter to see where it goes, then you don't have the ability. So, the foundation needs work. Now, if you be like, I think it's 12,000, but your foundation guy doesn't go over there, and then you're like, nah, I just don't want this house anymore. That's on a slippery slope. Foundation guy goes over there and he's like, nah, it's gonna cost you $40,000. That house is garbage. That's valid to be like, nah, we got to drop the price, 60 grand because it's going to take me 2 more months to fix the foundation. Again, that's valid.
All right. So just to clarify, fraud and inducement is illegal where?
Fraud's pretty much illegal everywhere. And so it's across the board. Fraud is illegal morally and legally everywhere.
Yeah. So again, just for everybody, right? The reason why we're talking about this, I mean, yes, this can come back to bite you later on, right? Not necessarily today. It could be next year, right? But also, you got your competition that's doing crazy things and it's hurting homeowners. And once homeowners are getting hurt, then they're going on TV, they're going in the news. And this is how you get certified wholesaler, whatever hell that means in Philadelphia. You got in Illinois, you have to be a licensed realtor to be a wholesaler. You got whatever that's coming up down the pike in Oklahoma. They haven't finalized it yet, but what was it? It was like the Predatory Oklahoma Homeowner Protection Act or something crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, and they've come up with great adjectives, right, to really hammer home the point. In Texas, there's a law coming down the books that if it gets passed in September, bandit signs are $10K a pop.
Yeah.
So you put a bad bandit sign out, get busted with it, you're writing a $10,000 check. They are targeting that. I know for a fact that law was written to get rid of the "we buy houses" bandit signs.
Yeah. And so we need to clean up our industry, because if we don't, then somebody in the state legislature or the Congress is going to clean it up for us, and we're not going to like how that looks.
Not at all. It's one of those things that, like, it's the boogeyman. I call the government. The government's the boogeyman, and it's never beneficial. It's going to hurt me and Steve. It's going to help Zillow. If you like Zillow, if you invest in Zillow, then good for you. But I mean, at the same time, that's kind of it. And the realtors associations are coming after wholesalers, right? Because it's taken away from their listing. Because before wholesaling was this popular, right, they got to buy a lot of houses off the market because they wouldn't sell. So we're taking money out of their pocket.
This huge coincidence that the guy that was leading up that Philadelphia certification process was one of the top realtors in Philly. I thought that was a huge coincidence.
And I wonder what his rental portfolio looks like, Steve, from houses that he bought before they went live on the market or closed them 15 minutes after he hit the send button. Yeah. It's probably pretty phenomenal.
Crazy.
Yeah, I don't trust anybody, much less the people that are making the most money from it without competition, right?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think just to put the nail in the coffin, or just to, for a final emphasis, do what you say you're going to do.
That's it. Literally. And if you can't do it, don't say it. Otherwise,
Right.
you're just a liar.
Yeah. So it looks like that's all the questions. Tyler, thank you for doing this. I think this is a great message for the wholesaling community, for the disruptors community. I think that the people that are in our community, Real Estate Roundup, and a few other ones, there's some great ones. I think that this is something that if they didn't know, that they'd be happy to know, and it makes it better for all of us.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up with one, this is not legal advice. This is legal education. But have the ability to close. Please keep wholesaling. You're helping people. There's people out there that really do need your expertise because they don't have it, or the mental faculties around their stressful situation to be able to learn it in the time that they need to. So this is not a hack against wholesalers. It's a hack against criminal, unethical, immoral people.
Exactly. All right.
Don't be that guy.
Don't be that guy. Thank you so much, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. See you all later.